Chapter 1. The Weakest Wolf. The night smelled of iron and ash. Lucio stood in the stone circle, his bare feet pressed into dirt that still held the warmth of the bonfire. The flames hissed and snapped in the pit behind him, sparks climbing into the black sky, as if trying to flee the suffocating tension. Above him, stars flickered faintly through a veil of smoke, pale witnesses to the trial unfolding below. Around him, wolves filled the clearing shoulder to shoulder, their breathing low and steady, their eyes glinting like shards of molten gold, silver, and bronze. The air was alive with the musk of fur and sweat, the sharp tang of bloodlust. It was supposed to be his night, his claiming. By tradition, tonight was meant to be when his wolf emerged fully, when he would shift before the pack and step forward into manhood, into strength, into belonging. For 20 years he had waited for this, endured the taunts, the blows, the endless training drills that left his body battered and his spirit raw. Tonight, everything was meant to change, but nothing had changed. Lucio stood in the circle, heart pounding against his ribs, and felt nothing. His wolf did not stir. His blood did not ignite. His body remained stubbornly human, fragile, hollow. A restless murmur spread through the pack. Some wolves bared their teeth in amusement. Others shook their heads in pity. But most only looked at him with disgust. Then came the heavy footfalls. The alpha stepped forward. Darien. His shadow fell long and hard across the circle, towering over Lucio like a mountain carved from scars and muscle. His dominance rolled through the clearing in waves, pressing down on every chest, stealing every breath. Even the strongest wolves lowered their eyes in submission. But not Lucio. Darien's voice cut through the night, deep and merciless, like thunder breaking stone. Lucio, son of no wolf, blood of no worth. 20 years you have walked among us. 20 years, and still your wolf sleeps. A ripple of laughter spread through the crowd. Someone spat in the dirt at Lucio's feet. Another called out, "Coward!" Darien's lips pulled into a cruel snarl. "You shame us. You shame this pack." Lucio's chest rose and fell with slow, steady breaths. He said nothing. His gaze, cold and unyielding, lifted to meet the alpha's. And in that silence, in that refusal to bow, murmurs of shock rippled through the gathering. Finally, his voice came low, steady, every word edged with defiance. "I never asked for your approval." Gasps, growls. A younger wolf broke from the line, teeth bared, claws flashing. He lunged for Lucio's throat, but Darien's arm shot out like iron, stopping him mid-stride. Enough. The alpha's voice dropped into a guttural growl that rattled the bones of everyone present. "Then hear your sentence. You are no longer of us. By tooth and by blood, you are cast out. No pack will claim you. No wolf will stand beside you. From this night forward, you walk alone." The roar that followed shook the trees, a symphony of rejection, of scorn, of triumph at another wolf's fall. The chains around Lucio's wrists were stripped away, falling heavy to the dirt with a sound that echoed like a final heartbeat. He stood there for one long, unbroken moment, the firelight painting hard shadows across his face. He did not plead. He did not tremble. He gave them no satisfaction, no tears, no fear, no weakness. And then, without a word, he turned his back to them all and walked into the night. The circle of wolves parted in silence as he passed, their eyes following him with venom, with disdain, with curiosity. But one voice, frail, cracking, half swallowed by the wind, carried after him. The voice of the seer, an old woman hunched in her furs, her blind eyes turned to the fire. "The wolf they cast out will return with claws sharper than gold." Lucio did not look back. Chapter 2. The Rise of a Ghost. Cities were louder than forests. Colder too, but they were easier to conquer. The forest had spat him out like carrion, but the human world? The human world could be bent, broken, reforged. Lucio learned fast. He buried his wolf so deeply he almost forgot it was there. No longer did he ache for the pull of the moon or the weight of the pack song in his chest. He focused on something else, something stronger, something sharper. What the wolf saw as weakness, he turned into a weapon. In the human world, dominance wasn't measured by the strength of your shift or the sharpness of your claws. It was measured in numbers, in power, in fear. At first he started with scraps, street corners, shady deals, hours of labor that broke his back for pennies. But he watched and he listened. Humans were predictable. They bowed to anyone who understood the game. And Lucio, exiled wolf, learned the game faster than anyone. He learned where greed lived. He learned how to exploit it. Within 5 years, he was no longer the boy sleeping in alleys. He was the man buying buildings. Within 10, companies began folding under his hand, swallowed whole. Their assets devoured, their leaders discarded like carcasses. Banks bent to him. Politicians whispered his name with wary respect. And within 20, he had carved an empire from steel and glass, a throne built not on loyalty, but on control. A billionaire, a phantom in human markets, a man untouchable. The wolves had once called him weak. Humans now called him ruthless. But in every mirrored skyscraper, in every reflection on the polished glass of his empire, Lucio saw the same thing staring back at him, a hollow. The wolf within him was silent, dormant, empty. At night, when he stood before his penthouse windows, city lights stretching like fallen stars across the horizon, he felt it most. The gnawing emptiness. The reminder that though he had built everything, wealth, power, fear, he still lacked the one thing he had been denied. A pact, a bond, a wolf's soul at peace. Lucio had everything, but it was never enough. And when the call came, when the past clawed its way back into his world with a single sentence, the silence inside him broke. Alpha Darien is dead. Lucio stilled in his office, the skyline burning behind him in the glow of a dying sunset. His jaw tightened. His hand curled around the edge of his desk until the mahogany groaned beneath his grip. Darien, the man who had stripped him of his name, the man who had cast him out before his people, the man who had called him nothing, gone. But the pack was not leaderless. No, they had chosen another. His daughter, Seraya Darien. Lucio's wolf, silent for decades, stirred for the first time. The hunger in his chest was sharp, savage. Not just hunger for revenge, not just hunger for power. Something older, something primal. It was time to return. Chapter 3. The Death of an Alpha. The phone rang in the middle of a deal. Lucio was standing in the glass conference room of his 48th-floor tower, overlooking the city as his lawyers bickered over a merger worth billions. Their voices droned like flies, none of them realizing their futures, their fortunes, their very bloodlines were already his to decide. He didn't usually take calls himself. People came to him, or they didn't exist. But when his private line flashed, a number he hadn't seen in decades, something cold coiled low in his chest. He answered with a single word. Speak. The voice on the other end was aged, roughened by time. A voice he thought he'd buried with his past. Alpha Darien is dead. Silence. The room around him blurred. Lawyers kept talking, flipping papers, gesturing toward screens. But Lucio's grip on the phone tightened until the polished titanium bent beneath his fingers. Darien, dead. The man who had spat his name like poison. The man who had cast him out under firelight, stripping him of kin, of honor, of the only life he had ever known. For 20 years Lucio had lived with the echo of Darien's words in his chest. Weak, worthless, alone. Now the great Alpha was nothing but dust. Lucio's lips curled into something between a smile and a snarl. Not joy, not grief, something darker, something hungrier. But before he could speak, the voice continued. His heir has taken the throne. Lucio's gaze snapped to the skyline. Steel and glass towers glittered under the dying sun like weapons waiting to be drawn. His heart, silent for decades, gave a violent thud against his ribs. Who? A pause. Then the name, sharp as a blade, heavy as prophecy. Seraya Darien, the Alpha's daughter. Lucio had been gone for 20 years, but he remembered her. Barely older than him, she had been fire even as a child. Proud, fierce, born with the dominance of her bloodline written into her very bones. She had watched him that night of his exile, silent, her eyes burning with the same disdain as her father's. Now she wore the crown, and with that name, with that truth, something inside Lucio woke. A stirring, a crack through the silence that had kept his wolf buried. For the first time in 20 years, his wolf shifted beneath his skin, restless, hungry, claws dragging against his insides. Lucio turned to the window, the city burning in twilight beneath him, and whispered into the glass. It's time. Chapter 4. Return of the Exile. The jet cut through the night like a blade of silver, engines purring low and smooth. Inside, silence reigned. Lucio sat alone, a glass of dark whiskey untouched at his side, his eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the window. His empire stretched behind him, an empire of glass towers, contracts, billions upon billions stacked at his feet. But he wasn't flying toward more deals, more boardrooms, more bloodless victories. He was flying back to the place that had birthed him, the place that had banished him. The Pack's territory lay ahead, nestled in the forests and mountains of the north, a land untouched by human hands, sacred, brutal, beautiful. Lucio's hands flexed against his knees, remembering the dirt of the stone's circle, the heat of the fire, the eyes that had watched as he was cast out. They had seen him leave broken, humiliated, stripped of honor. They would not see him return the same. This time he would not crawl back. He would arrive as a storm. He had already laid the groundwork. Quietly, carefully, his companies had bought up land surrounding the Pack's borders, piece by piece, acre by acre, until half the human-owned property in the region answered to him. The town near the Pack's forest, its banks, its businesses, its lifeblood, all bent to his silent control. Seraya Darien might wear the title of Alpha, but she ruled a kingdom surrounded by his claws. Lucio's lips curved into a cold smile as the jet descended. When he stepped off the plane, the night air of his homeland hit him like a memory, crisp, pine-scented, threaded with the musk of wolves. His chest tightened, his wolf shifting restlessly, straining toward the land it had been denied for decades. But there was no warmth in his return, only fire, only hunger. He walked down the tarmac with the grace of a predator who knew the world bent to him now. His driver waited at the edge of the landing strip, bowing his head before opening the sleek black car. Lucio slid inside, the leather hugging his frame, and gave only one order. His voice was low, dark, dangerous. Take me to her. Chapter 5. The New Alpha. The Pack Hall was carved from stone and timber, its walls heavy with history. Torches lined the pillars, their flames flickering shadows across banners stitched with wolves, battles, bloodlines. The air smelled of pine resin, smoke, and dominance, thick enough to choke a weaker man. Lucio pushed through the double doors without waiting for invitation. The wolves gathered inside went silent. Conversations cut. Glasses paused midair. Dozens of eyes locked on him with shock, with anger, with recognition. Some of the older ones froze, their faces pale as though they'd seen a ghost crawl out of its grave. The ghost smiled. Lucio walked into the hall with the calm confidence of a man who owned every stone beneath his feet. His suit was black, tailored sharp, his shoes gleaming like onyx. Against the rough-hewn walls of the Pack's ancestral hall, he looked wrong. Too polished, too human, and yet more dangerous than any claw. At the head of the hall, upon the raised platform where only the Alpha was meant to stand, she waited. Seraya Darien. Her presence struck him like a blow. She was taller than he remembered, her body honed from years of battle, every inch radiating strength. Her dark hair spilled over her shoulders in waves that gleamed like raven feathers, her eyes a burning amber that pierced the dim firelight. She wore leather armor, practical and regal all at once, a wolf who ruled not by inheritance alone, but by sheer force. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. The weight of 2 decades pressed between them like a blade. Then she rose to her full height, her voice steady and sharp as steel. Lucio. The sound of his name from her lips stirred something primal inside him. His wolf shifted restlessly, pushing against his skin, claws raking at the edges of his control. Lucio's lips curved, but the smile was cold. Alpha Seraya. The room bristled. Some wolves growled, low in warning. Others glanced at each other in confusion, unsure whether to bow to him or bare their teeth. Seraya descended the steps with the grace of a predator, every movement coiled with control. She stopped only a few feet from him, her chin lifted high, her dominance pressing like a weight against his chest. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned like fire. "Exile is permanent." Lucio tilted his head, studying her as though she were another deal to be dissected. "And yet here I am. You walk into my hall, uninvited, after 20 years, and think you can stand before me as if nothing has changed." Lucio's voice dropped low, dangerous. "Everything has changed." Her jaw tightened. "This is my pack now. My territory. You have no claim here." The words slid over him like smoke, but his wolf bristled. His veins pulsed with the raw pull of dominance, the primal urge to prove himself, to claim, to take. He leaned in, his voice just for her. "You think this is yours, but I was born in this circle. Cast out, yes. Forgotten? Never. You were a crown built on a lie, Seraya. And I came back to remind you." For a moment her mask cracked. Surprise flickered in her eyes, quickly replaced by fury. Around them, the wolves tensed, waiting for blood. But Lucio only straightened, his expression unreadable, and walked past her toward the center of the hall. His voice carried like thunder. "I didn't come to beg for a place. I came to take back what was stolen." The room erupted, growls, shouts, snapping teeth. But Lucio's calm never wavered. Only Soraya's voice cut through the chaos. "Try, and you'll die where you stand." Lucio met her gaze, the air between them crackling, thick with tension, not just of battle, but something darker, something older, something neither could name yet. Chapter 6: Clash of Power. The pack council gathered within hours. Lucio sat at the long table of polished wood, out of place in his suit among wolves clad in leather and scars. His presence was an open wound in their traditions, a provocation no one could ignore. Seraya sat opposite him, her posture regal, her expression carved from stone. Every glance she gave him was fire, sharp, dangerous, threatening to consume. An elder slammed his fist on the table. "He has no right to be here." Another growled, "Exile is permanent. The law is clear." Lucio let them rage. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled, expression bored, the very picture of a man in control. When the noise reached its peak, he spoke, his voice smooth as velvet, sharp as glass. "The law is clear, but the world has changed." The table fell silent, wary. Lucio's gaze swept the room, slow, deliberate. "You survive on land you don't own. You rely on human towns you don't control. Every road, every contract, every shipment that passes your borders belongs to me." A ripple of shock. "I own the banks that lend you money. I own the suppliers that feed your people. I own the businesses that keep your little town alive." His smile was thin, deadly. "Whether you admit it or not, I already own you." The elders bristled, half rising from their seats. Growls echoed through the hall, but Seraya did not move. Her eyes never left his. Finally, she spoke, her voice low, steady, vibrating with fury. "You come into my home and think money makes you strong? You think contracts and human laws mean anything here?" Lucio's wolf surged beneath his skin, pressing forward, aching to meet hers. He leaned closer, his eyes flashing dark, almost feral. "Money is power, and power bends laws, even yours." For the briefest moment, their wolves brushed, unseen, untouchable, but undeniable. His hunger slammed against her fire, a spark igniting in the silence. She felt it too. He saw it in the way her breath caught, the faintest shift in her stance, the mate bond stirring like an ember. But Seraya crushed it, her eyes hardening into steel. "Try to claim what is mine, Lucio, and I will end you." The room erupted again, but Lucio only smiled. Because beneath her fury, beneath her words, he had seen it, the crack. The bond neither of them wanted. The bond neither of them could deny. Chapter 7: Wolves in the Dark. Night had fallen when Lucio left the hall. The forest pressed close to the pack's land, thick with shadow and the scent of pine. He walked the narrow path alone, the moonlight silvering his black suit, his wolf restless beneath his skin. The meeting had ended in chaos, shouts, threats. Wolves barely held back from lunging at him. But none of it had mattered. Not the snarls, not the threats, not even the law of exile, because he had seen her, Seraya Darien. Her dominance had rolled over the room like fire. Her voice had cut through centuries of tradition like a blade. And yet, for all her fire, something else had burned between them, something older. The bond. Lucio clenched his fists as he moved through the darkened path, his wolf pacing inside him like a caged beast. The scent of her still lingered in his lungs, wild, sharp, intoxicating. His wolf snarled, demanding, aching to go back, to claim. But Lucio was not a man who gave in to demands. Not from men, not from beasts, not even from the mate bond itself. Still, the silence of the night couldn't quiet the truth. Fate had tied them together, and fate was a chain he had spent his life breaking. Behind him, twigs snapped. The faintest whisper of padded steps. Lucio didn't turn. He let the shadows breathe, let the silence stretch before he finally spoke. Stalking the Alpha? From the darkness, amber eyes glowed. A wolf stepped into the moonlight, her massive form sleek and lethal. Seraya. She didn't shift, didn't speak, only circled him with a low growl rumbling in her chest. Lucio met her gaze, unflinching, his lips curving into a cold smile. If you wanted me alone, you could have asked. The wolf's growl deepened, vibrating through the trees. She snapped her teeth near his shoulder, so close the air moved against his skin. Lucio didn't flinch. He leaned forward, his voice low and sharp. Careful, Seraya. The bond doesn't care for your hate. Her wolf froze, a flicker of recognition, of denial. Then, with a snarl, she vanished back into the trees. Lucio stood alone again, the echo of her scent wrapping around him like fire. He exhaled, his wolf restless, hungry, and whispered to the empty woods. Run all you like. Fate always hunts you down. Chapter 8. Chains of Blood. The next day, the council demanded answers. Lucio sat at the table once more, but this time the room pulsed with suspicion rather than fury. Whispers passed between elders, their voices hushed yet frantic. Something about the exile. Something about the law. Seraya's eyes never left him. Finally, an elder slammed his palm against the wood, his voice rough with age and fear. 20 years ago, you were cast out for weakness. But weakness does not explain survival. You walk in here alive, stronger than ever. Tell us, Lucio, what keeps you alive? What do you serve? The room leaned in, tension sharp as glass. Lucio's smile was slow, dangerous. I serve no one. But Seraya's voice cut through the silence. Calm, accusing, then explain the chains. The hall froze. Lucio's jaw tightened. His wolf snapped inside him. Chains. She could feel them. She could see what others could not. The invisible weight he carried, buried deep in his blood, binding his wolf, binding his power. He rose slowly, the shadows seeming to cling to him as he straightened. Careful, Alpha. Some truths were buried for a reason. Her eyes flashed, fire meeting his storm. Buried truths always claw their way out. For a moment, the hall was nothing but silence and the pull between them. The elders shifted uneasily, sensing a war they didn't understand. Lucio's wolf pressed hard against his chest, aching to break free, aching to bare itself before her. But Lucio swallowed it back, his voice cold and final. I came here to claim, not to explain. He left the hall with their whispers following like a trail of knives. But Seraya's voice echoed in his mind long after the doors shut. Chains. Chapter 9. Fire and Storm. That night, the storm broke. Rain hammered the roof of the guest house where Lucio had chosen to stay. Not in the Pax quarters, but in the old manor at the edge of the forest, one that had long fallen into disrepair. It was fitting, a ruin for a ruined man. He stood at the window, the glass trembling with thunder, lightning flashing across his sharp features. His reflection stared back, a man forged of fury, of exile, of power stolen and clawed back piece by bloody piece. But the storm inside him was worse. His wolf prowled, restless, its hunger fixated on one thing, one person, Seraya. And as if summoned by thought alone, the door slammed open. She stood there, soaked from the rain, her leather clinging to every curve, her hair wild and dripping, her eyes blazing. For a heartbeat, they only stared at each other, the storm raging around them, between them, inside them. Then she spoke, her voice low, vibrating with fury. You think you can walk back into my world and bend it to your will? You think money and arrogance make you alpha? Lucio turned, his wolf surging, his voice dark and roughened by something primal. No, but I think fate does. Her breath caught, fury flickering into something else. Something raw, something dangerous. Lightning split the sky. The bond snapped taut between them, a chain of fire and storm neither could deny. And in that instant both knew the truth. They weren't just enemies. They were mates. Chapter 10. The Clash of Wills. The storm had not passed. Inside the ruined manor, lightning carved shadows across the room where Lucio and Seraya stood locked in silence. The air between them was alive, thick, hot, trembling with something neither wanted to name. Seraya's wolf paced behind her amber eyes, restless, pulled to him against her will. She could feel it as clearly as breath, the bond. That treacherous, ancient law of their kind that cared nothing for choice, nothing for power, nothing for pride. But she was alpha now. She had fought for it, bled for it, burned for it. And she would not have her throne threatened by a man who had been cast out, a man who returned cloaked in secrets. You don't belong here, she hissed, stepping closer, her scent wild and furious, filling his lungs until his control trembled. The council may tremble at your gold, but I won't. I will not let you poison this pack. Lucio's wolf slammed against his chest, demanding he claim her, demanding he seize what fate had bound. But Lucio's voice came out calm, cold, every word sharp enough to bleed. You speak as though you can stop me. Her lips curled, bearing the faintest hint of teeth. I can, and I will. Lightning flared, throwing their faces into stark relief. Her fury burned. His hunger smoldered. The pull between them snapped taut, a rope pulled to breaking. Lucio leaned in, so close he could taste the heat of her breath. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Then try, Alpha. Try to push me away. For one breath, one heartbeat, the air between them was molten. Then, with a growl that shook her frame, Seraya shoved him back, slamming the door as she vanished into the storm. Lucio exhaled slowly, his wolf snarling in frustration. She thought she could resist. She thought her will was stronger than fate. But she would learn. No one ran from the storm forever. Chapter 10. The Clash of Wills. The storm had not passed. Inside the ruined manor, lightning carved shadows across the room where Lucio and Seraya stood locked in silence. The air between them was alive, thick, hot, trembling with something neither wanted to name. Seraya's wolf paced behind her amber eyes, restless, pulled to him against her will. She could feel it as clearly as breath, the bond. That treacherous, ancient law of their kind that cared nothing for choice, nothing for power, nothing for pride. But she was alpha now. She had fought for it, bled for it, burned for it. And she would not have her throne threatened by a man who had been cast out, a man who returned cloaked in secrets. You don't belong here, she hissed, stepping closer, her scent wild and furious, filling his lungs until his control trembled. The council may tremble at your gold, but I won't. I will not let you poison this pack. Lucio's wolf slammed against his chest, demanding he claim her, demanding he seize what fate had bound. But Lucio's voice came out calm, cold, every word sharp enough to bleed. You speak as though you can stop me. Her lips curled, bearing the faintest hint of teeth. I can, and I will. Lightning flared, throwing their faces into stark relief. Her fury burned. His hunger smoldered. The pull between them snapped taut, a rope pulled to breaking. Lucio leaned in, so close he could taste the heat of her breath. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Then try, Alpha. Try to push me away. For one breath, one heartbeat, the air between them was molten. Then, with a growl that shook her frame, Seraya shoved him back, slamming the door as she vanished into the storm. Lucio exhaled slowly, his wolf snarling in frustration. She thought she could resist. She thought her will was stronger than fate. But she would learn. No one ran from the storm forever. Chapter 11. The Chains Beneath the Skin. The night was restless. Lucio didn't sleep. He rarely did. Sleep brought memories, and memories brought fire. Instead, he sat in the ruined study of the manor, candlelight flickering over the scars that lined his chest, his arms, his back. Each scar told a story, none he cared to repeat. But deeper than the scars was something worse, something unseen. The chains. They weren't metal. They weren't visible to human eyes. But they were there, etched into his very blood, burning into his wolf like brands. He could feel them even now, coiled tight around his power, biting every time his wolf pushed too far. It was the reason he had been cast out. Not weakness, not cowardice, but a curse. The night of his exile, when the Alpha had declared him unworthy, the truth had been buried. Only a handful knew what really lay in Lucio's blood. A secret so dangerous it could unravel the pack's laws. A secret so dark it had nearly killed him. He poured whiskey into a glass, watching the amber liquid catch the light. His reflection in the glass showed eyes glowing faintly silver. Not the gold of a dominant alpha, not the dull brown of a human, but something else. Something broken, something chained. And yet, even bound, even scarred, he had clawed his way into an empire. Lucio lifted the glass to his lips, his voice low, almost a growl. Chains or not, I will never bow again. But in the silence of the manor, his wolf stirred uneasily. Because for the first time in decades, it wasn't only the chains that burned. It was the bond. Chapter 12. A Dangerous Dance. The next evening, the pack gathered for the hunt. It was tradition, wolves shifting under the full moon, racing through the forest, testing strength and unity. For Seraya, it was a way to remind her people of her power. For Lucio, it was a chance to step where he had once been forbidden. When he arrived at the edge of the clearing, every head turned. Wolves bristled, elders whispered, young warriors bared their teeth. He was not welcome, not one of them, and yet none dared stop him. Seraya stood at the front, her leather armor clinging to her like a second skin, her hair bound back, her eyes glowing with alpha fire. She met his gaze with fury, but beneath it, a flicker of something else. Something she was fighting just as hard as he was. The bond. Lucio smiled faintly, inclining his head. Try not to fall behind, Alpha. Her glare was sharp enough to cut. Keep up, exile. The horns blew. Wolves shifted, bones cracking, for bursting as bodies became beasts. The forest erupted with pounding paws and snarling breath as the hunt began. Lucio didn't shift. Not yet. He ran, faster than most wolves even in human form, his body honed, his strength undeniable. The trees whipped past, the scent of earth and blood filling his lungs. Then, as the moon reached its peak, he let go. His wolf burst free in a storm of silver and shadow, fur dark as midnight, eyes burning with chain fire. The ground shook as his paws hit the earth, his power rippling through the pack like a shock wave. For a moment, the hunt faltered. Wolves turned, eyes widening, recognizing what should have been impossible. Lucio was no weakling, no cast-out Omega. He was something else entirely. And when his eyes locked on Seraya, her wolf golden, her form sleek and deadly, the forest itself seemed to still. Two wolves, two forces, fated, bound, doomed to collide. The hunt was no longer about prey. It was about them. Chapter 13. The Wolf Who Shouldn't Exist. The hunt should have been simple. A chase, a kill, a reminder of unity beneath the moon. But the moment Lucio shifted, nothing was simple. The wolves slowed, hackles raised, their instincts screaming at them. His form was wrong, too large, too sharp, fur that shimmered with shadow as though the night itself clung to him. His eyes glowed silver, not gold. Power rolled off him, vast and chained, like thunder muffled but still deafening. Whispers slithered through the pack. He shouldn't be alive. No wolf chain survives this long. What is he? Seraya's wolf growled low, circling him in the clearing. She wanted to deny what she saw, to reject it outright. But her instincts betrayed her. This wolf, this exile, had strength beyond anything she'd ever known. Her wolf wanted him, needed him, and Seraya hated it. The hunt resumed, but it was no longer about prey. Wolves darted through the trees, but eyes kept flicking back to the storm of shadow that was Lucio, every movement predatory, effortless, dangerous. Some part of her, the alpha, the protector, wanted to challenge him outright, to prove she could break him. Another part, the woman, the mate, wanted to press closer, to see if his heat burned as hot as her instincts whispered. She forced it all down, forcing her wolf into the chase. But as the moon hung heavy overhead, she knew the truth. Lucio was not the man they cast out. He was something far worse. Chapter 14. Blood in the Moonlight. The hunt turned violent. A rogue pack had stalked the edges of their territory for weeks, waiting for weakness. And tonight, with the moon high and the alpha distracted, they struck. Howls split the night, sharp and furious. Wolves with eyes glowing red poured from the shadows, their teeth flashing in the silver light. The clearing erupted in chaos, claws, fur, blood. Seraya shifted fully, her golden wolf leaping into battle, tearing through rogues with unmatched ferocity. Her pack fought beside her, but they were outnumbered. And then Lucio moved. He was fire and storm, a predator unleashed. He tore through rogues like shadows tearing cloth. Every strike lethal, every movement precise. His chains burned inside him, biting, punishing him for every ounce of power he drew, but he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The rogues fell back, snarling, uncertain. No wolf should have been able to fight like this. Not chained, not bound. But Lucio's wolf was something different, something they couldn't name. When the last rogue fell, silence pressed over the clearing, broken only by ragged breaths. Wolves shifted back, bloodied, trembling. Eyes turned to Seraya, then to him. The pack had seen. They had seen what he was. Soraya's wolf stood over him, her golden fur matted with blood, her chest heaving. For one heartbeat, one single breath, she pressed her muzzle against his, a gesture that was neither dominance nor defiance, but something far more dangerous. Recognition. The pack gasped, whispers starting. Seraya pulled back sharply, fury burning in her gaze, as if she hadn't meant to do it, as if her wolf had betrayed her. But Lucio only stared at her, his wolf calm, certain, claiming without words. And the bond burned hotter than fire. Chapter 15. The First Fracture. They dragged the rogue bodies to the pyres, flames licking the night as the pack gathered in silence. The council muttered, their eyes darting between Seraya and Lucio, their whispers sharp as knives. This is dangerous. He fights like a monster. The alpha touched him. Fate. Fate is binding them. Seraya ignored them all, her jaw tight, her body stiff. Inside, her wolf paced restlessly, clawing at her walls, demanding she stop resisting. But Seraya refused. She was alpha. She couldn't give in to a bond that would undermine her throne, her strength, her freedom. Lucio, of course, was infuriatingly calm. Standing apart, his shirt torn, blood streaking his skin, he looked every inch the predator, untamed, unbroken. His silver eyes found hers across the firelight, and he smiled faintly, as if he knew every thought twisting inside her. Later, when the others had gone, Seraya confronted him. You should have stayed gone. Lucio's voice was low, dangerous. And leave you to fall to rogues? No, Seraya. Whether you admit it or not, you need me. Her hands clenched into fists. I need no one. He stepped closer, so close she could feel the heat of him, his wolf pressing against hers like a tide. His voice dropped to a whisper. You can deny me, deny the bond, deny fate. But you can't deny this. Her breath hitched as his hand brushed hers, the contact sending fire racing up her arm, their wolves surging, snarling, demanding. For a heartbeat, she nearly gave in, nearly let herself fall into him, into the bond, into the fire that threatened to consume them both. But then she tore her hand away, her voice shaking with fury and desperation. You are a chain I will not wear. Lucio's jaw tightened, his wolf growling beneath his skin. For once, his voice was quiet, almost broken. Chains bind me already, Seraya. You are the only one strong enough to break them. He left her standing in the firelight, trembling, her wolf howling inside her chest. And for the first time, Alpha Seraya Darien felt something terrifying. Not anger, not power, but fear. Fear of the bond. Fear of him. Fear of herself. Chapter 16. Whispers in the Dark. The fires of the pyres had barely died before the whispers began. The council met in secret, huddled inside the old stone hall where even the walls seemed to remember blood. Elders with eyes like knives and voices dripping with poison. He is dangerous. He is cursed. If the Alpha bonds with him, our laws crumble. One councilman, his robes heavy with gold, leaned forward, his voice a hiss. We should have ended him the night he was exiled. The chains should have killed him. And yet, he walked stronger than ever. Do you not see what this means? Another growled low. It means the chains didn't bind him. They chose him, and that makes him worse than cursed. Murmurs rose, fearful, furious, and then a decision. Lucio Darien must not be allowed to remain. But they could not move openly. The Alpha's blood had already betrayed her, her wolf touching his, recognizing him. If they killed him outright, the bond would break her. No, they would have to be clever, quiet, deadly. And in the shadows of the council chamber, a plan was born. Chapter 17. The Alpha's Breaking Point. Seraya didn't sleep. All night, she paced her chambers, the weight of the bond pressing against her chest like a vice. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt him, his wolf's heat brushing against hers, his scent, his strength. Her body ached with it, her wolf howled with it, and her heart burned with fury that she couldn't control it. By dawn, she stormed into the ruined manor, her patience gone. Lucio was waiting for her, shirtless, scarred, his silver eyes glowing faintly in the morning light. He looked carved from shadow and fire, and the sight of him nearly made her knees buckle. Why, she demanded, her voice raw. Why come back? Why put this curse on me? Lucio tilted his head, studying her as though she were the one unraveling. I didn't choose this, Seraya. Neither did you. His voice softened, the first crack in his armor. But fate doesn't care for choice. Her hands trembled. She hated it. Hated that her wolf whined for him. Hated that her body betrayed her pride. She slammed her fist against his chest. The impact nothing against his strength, but everything against her heart. I don't want this, she cried. Do you hear me? I don't want you. For a moment, silence. Then his hand closed over hers, steady, warm, unyielding. His voice was low, guttural, vibrating with his wolf. Then why do you shake when I touch you? Her breath caught, her wolf surging violently, demanding she submit, demanding she claim. His hand slid down, his thumb brushing her wrist, and the bond exploded like fire in her veins. Her knees nearly gave. For a heartbeat, a dangerous heartbeat, she leaned into him. Then she tore herself away, gasping for air like she was drowning. This is madness, she whispered. You will ruin me. Lucio's gaze burned into her, heavy with something she could not name. No, he said softly. I will free you. Chapter 18. The First Touch of Fire. It was never supposed to happen. They were supposed to resist, to fight, to deny. But that night, the bond broke its chains. A storm swept through the city, rain lashing the windows of the manor. Seraya had come to confront him again, to demand he leave, to demand he sever the bond. But the moment the door shut behind her, the storm inside both of them surged too strong. Their wolves collided before words could. Power slammed through the room, their scents tangling, their breaths uneven, their bodies drawn closer like magnets snapping shut. Lucio's hand caught her jaw, tilting her face up. His eyes glowed silver fire, his wolf clawing beneath his skin. Tell me to stop, he whispered, his voice rough. Seraya's lips trembled, her wolf howling in her chest, begging her to submit, to give in. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, she surged forward, crashing against him. Their mouths collided, brutal and desperate, a war and a surrender all at once. His arms locked around her, crushing her against him, her nails raking down his back as their bond roared like wildfire. Every scar on him, every wall in her, burned away in that kiss. When they tore apart, gasping, trembling, the truth hung heavy in the air. This wasn't a choice anymore. This was fate, and fate was merciless. Chapter 19. Ashes of Denial. The kiss should have broken her. Instead, it broke the walls she had spent years building. Seraya didn't return to her chambers that night. She remained in the manor, pacing the ruined halls, her wolf restless, her body still trembling with the memory of his mouth on hers, his hands on her skin. She hated herself for wanting more, hated the weakness. Lucio, for his part, didn't push. He didn't touch her again, didn't even speak. He sat by the dying fire, shirtless, scarred, his eyes half shadow and half silver flame, watching her as though he'd already won a war she hadn't admitted to fighting. When dawn crept in, she finally spoke, her voice raw. This never happened. Lucio's lips curved faintly, almost cruel. Say it as many times as you like, Seraya. But your wolf remembers. Her chest tightened. She hated that he was right. She hated that every breath she took carried his scent, that every flicker of her wolf craved him. By the time she left the manor, her body was shaking with denial. She told herself it was the last time, that she'd bury it, kill it, chain it. But even as she walked away, her wolf turned its head back to him, whining softly. And Seraya knew. She could never chain this. Chapter 20. Knives in the Shadows. The council moved swiftly. They couldn't risk open rebellion against the Alpha. But Lucio was vulnerable. Alone in his crumbling manor, no allies, no pack. If he were to vanish, if his chains finally caught him, who would mourn? A plan was set. On the second night after the hunt, as storms gathered again, assassins crept through the city. Not rogues, but wolves of the council, trained killers, shadows with teeth. They moved silent through the manor's broken walls, blades dipped in silver, hearts pounding with fear. Lucio felt them long before they struck. The chains inside him tightened, punishing him for summoning strength, but his wolf surged anyway, rising with fury. He met the assassins in the shattered great hall, silver eyes gleaming in the torchlight. "You should have come with more," he said coldly. And then the slaughter began. Claws raked, blades clashed, blood painted the stone. Lucio moved like shadow and storm, his wolf tearing through them even as the chains burned him alive. But there were too many, and for every one he struck down, another lunged, another cut, another wound. By the time the last assassin fell, Lucio was on his knees, blood soaking his chest, his breath ragged. And standing in the doorway, pale with shock, was Seraya. She had come, drawn by the bond, by some instinct she couldn't name. And now, staring at him bleeding on the floor, she realized the truth. The council wanted him dead, and they would keep trying. Chapter 21. Bound in Blood. Seraya rushed to his side, her alpha command already on her lips. But when her hands touched him, when his blood smeared across her palms, something happened she could never have prepared for. The bond flared. Not just heat, not just instinct, but something older, deeper, ancient. Her wolf screamed in her chest, demanding she heal him, demanding she claim him. And for the first time in her life, Seraya obeyed something other than her pride. She pressed her palm to his chest, her lips near his ear, her voice trembling with the force of the bond. "You will not die. Do you hear me? You will not." Lucio's silver eyes fluttered open, pain etched into every line of him. But even half dead, even bleeding, his lips curved into a faint, broken smile. "You command me like I'm yours." Her throat tightened. "You are not mine." But the bond burned hotter, chains rattling inside him, breaking, weakening, as if her words had cracked something deeper. Lucio's bloodied hand lifted, his fingers brushing her cheek, smearing her with crimson. His voice was hoarse, but steady. "Then why does it feel like I've always belonged to you?" The storm outside thundered, the manor trembling. And Seraya realized the truth. This wasn't just a bond. This was fate binding itself in blood. Chapter 22. The Healing Touch. Lucio drifted in and out of consciousness for 2 days. The wounds were deep, poisoned with silver, and though his wolf fought to knit them, the chains burned each attempt, punishing him for surviving. By all logic, he should have been dead. But Seraya did not leave. The alpha of the city, her people, her council, her laws, abandoned for 2 days while she sat in a broken manor, her hands pressed to the chest of an exiled Omega, willing him to breathe. Her wolf had chosen. Each time his breath faltered, she poured power into him, whispering commands, whispering his name, her voice breaking with desperation. And each time his chest rose again, as though he lived because she demanded it. On the second night, his eyes opened fully. Silver fire, dim but alive, locked on her. "You stayed," he rasped. Her throat tightened. "Don't speak." But Lucio's lips curved faintly, almost mockingly. "Afraid if I do. I'll remind you what you've done." She stiffened but couldn't look away. He was weak, bloodied, broken. But even then he had the audacity of a king. "I don't regret saving you," she said finally. "But don't mistake this. You are not mine." His hand caught her wrist before she could pull away, his grip surprisingly strong. His eyes bored into hers, silver and unyielding. "Then why?" he whispered. "Do you look at me like you already lost?" Chapter 23. Wolves in the Walls. Word spread like wildfire. The Alpha hadn't returned to her hall. The Alpha was seen entering the manor of the cast-out Omega. The Alpha's scent, thick, primal, lingered there, stronger than it had any right to. The council did not speak of it openly. Not yet. But whispers grew sharper, eyes followed her more closely, and every step Seraya took was shadowed by suspicion. One night, a trusted beta approached her in private. A woman who had served her for years, loyal beyond measure. "They are watching you," she warned. "Every move, every breath. If they believe he has your bond." "They will challenge me," Seraya finished bitterly. The beta hesitated. "If it comes to that, will you deny him?" Soraya's chest clenched, because she knew she should say yes. She should sever this, bury it, kill it before it consumed her rule. But her wolf howled so violently at the thought that she staggered. And for the first time in her reign, Seraya had no answer. Chapter 24. The Wolf Beneath the Chains. Lucio rose before dawn, scars raw, body still battered. But even broken, he radiated power. Seraya entered the hall to find him standing before the shattered windows, shirtless again, his breath steaming in the cold air. The storm had passed, leaving the world unnaturally still. "You shouldn't be on your feet," she said sharply. He turned, silver eyes glinting. "And yet I am—" Her lips parted, half in fury, half in awe. The chains should have kept him weak. The wounds should have crippled him. And still he stood. Lucio stepped closer, every inch of him radiating danger, every scar on him telling the story of survival. His voice dropped low, intimate, almost reverent. "You feel it, don't you?" Seraya swallowed hard. "Feel what?" He stopped before her, so close she could feel the heat rolling from his skin. His wolf pulsed beneath his flesh, clawing against the chains. "That I am not what they say. That I was never meant to crawl." His gaze burned into hers, daring her to deny it. "You saved me because some part of you knows what I am." Her chest rose, shaky, her wolf pressing against her ribs, aching to touch him. "And what are you, Lucio?" His hand lifted, brushing her jaw, gentle yet burning. The bond flared violently, making her gasp. His lips curved, dangerous and soft all at once. "Yours." And though her pride screamed to push him away, her wolf screamed louder, demanding she claim him, here and now. Chapter 25. The Fire Between Them. The air between them burned. Lucio's hand lingered against her jaw, his touch far too intimate, far too dangerous. His silver eyes locked with hers, unblinking, steady, like he was waiting for her to breathe, to falter, to admit the one truth she had been burying. Her wolf clawed inside her chest, howling, demanding she stop resisting. She could feel it, the bond. Not just instinct, not just desire. This was older, primal, binding them in a way no law, no throne, no council could undo. Seraya tried to step back. She needed distance, control. But Lucio's hand slid to the back of her neck, gentle yet unyielding, holding her there, holding her gaze as though he would not allow her to lie to herself any more. "You can keep running from it," he murmured, voice rough like gravel. But every time you breathe me in. Her lips parted, a sharp inhale, and gods, he was right. His scent wrapped around her like smoke and storm, intoxicating, maddening. Her wolf thrashed, aching to surrender, to press closer, to claim. Seraya's pride screamed at her to push him away. She was alpha. She commanded. She ruled. She bent others to her will. She did not fall to temptation, did not burn for an outcast, did not kneel to chains and scars. And yet, when his thumb brushed against her pulse, when his breath ghosted over her lips, her body betrayed her. The kiss was inevitable. When their mouths met, it wasn't gentle. It was fire unleashed, a dam breaking after years of restraint. His lips devoured hers, hungry and desperate, her hands clawing at his chest, as though she couldn't get close enough. Her wolf howled in triumph. And though she tore herself away moments later, gasping, shaking, trembling with fury at herself, the truth had already been sealed. She wanted him, and wanting him was going to destroy her. Chapter 26. The Council's Snare. While Seraya burned in silence, the council moved. They met in secret, behind sealed doors and shadowed chambers, voices sharp and venomous. The whispers of her absence, the rumors of her visits to the manor, the undeniable scent she left behind. It was enough. Too much. She is compromised, one elder hissed. An alpha bound to a cast-out omega? It is a stain on our order. Another snarled, we should have finished him when we had the chance. He will poison her, corrupt her, drag her down. And in the corner, the oldest counselor, the one who had orchestrated Lucio's chains years ago, spoke with chilling calm. Then let us use it. Let her damn herself before all. The plan was simple, deadly. They would not strike Lucio again in shadow. They would strike him in the open, where Seraya would be forced to choose, alpha or traitor, throne or mate. For if she defended him, if she stood against them, she would be declaring war against her own council. And an alpha who warred against her council was an alpha who would not rule long. That night, as Seraya tried to wash Lucio's scent from her skin, tried to bury the taste of his kiss, she did not know that her enemies were already weaving the noose, and the rope would tighten soon. Chapter 27. The Gathering of Shadows. The summons came at dawn. A council meeting, formal and binding, beneath the ancient vaulted roof of the Hall of Wolves. Every alpha, every beta, every elder who mattered would be present. No absence permitted. Seraya felt the weight of it the moment the messenger delivered the decree. The words were polite, ceremonial, cloaked in the trappings of tradition. But beneath the gold ink and parchment lay the truth. It was a summons to judgment. She dressed in silence. Her robes of power, midnight black with the crest of her line stitched in silver thread, felt heavier than armor. Each step toward the hall was a march toward execution. Lucio stood in the shadows of her chamber as she prepared. He had healed enough to move without faltering, though the scars still cut deep across his chest. His silver eyes followed her, unreadable, but burning with something she refused to name. They're going to test you, he said quietly. His voice was low, steady, like steel drawn across stone. They'll want me there. They'll want me broken before them. She froze, hand tightening on the clasp of her robe. He was right. They wouldn't strike him in darkness anymore. They would strike in the light, before witnesses, before the pack. Her heart beat faster. If they touch you. Lucio's lips curved, humorless and sharp. If they touch me, you'll have to decide whether you are theirs or mine. The words cut deeper than any blade. She turned sharply away, unwilling to let him see how they shook her. But as she entered the Hall of Wolves an hour later, her wolf clawed violently in her chest, restless, scenting the trap. The great chamber was filled. Torches flickered along the carved stone walls, shadows dancing across the faces of elders and warriors alike. Every eye followed her as she walked to her throne. Whispers hissed like snakes. At the far end of the chamber, 2 guards dragged Lucio forward in chains. Not the old ones, new ones, freshly forged, gleaming cruelly in the firelight. Silver-laced, designed not just to bind, but to humiliate. The counselor who had spoken against him years ago, old, gaunt, his voice like brittle glass, stepped forward. Alpha Seraya, he intoned. This Omega trespasses where he does not belong. He taints the air of your reign. For the sake of your throne, your people, and the honor of this pack, speak this sentence. Silence fell. All eyes turned to her, and Lucio, chained and kneeling at the center of the hall, raised his head slowly until his eyes locked on hers. No fear, no plea, only defiance, cold and bright, as though daring her to choose. Chapter 28. The Defiance of an Alpha. Soraya's pulse thundered in her ears. The hall seemed to shrink, the weight of expectation pressing down from every side. She could feel the council's hunger, waiting, eager, certain she would denounce him. It was the easiest path, the expected path. She only had to say the word, and the chains would drag him from her sight forever. It would save her throne, save her rule, save everything she had built. And yet, her wolf raged inside her, a storm with no cage. The thought of losing him, of watching his silver eyes dim into nothing, sent pain searing through her chest. Lucio tilted his head, ever so slightly. His lips barely moved, but she knew what he whispered. Choose. Something inside her snapped. She rose from her throne in one fluid motion, her power cracking across the hall like lightning. The warriors nearest her staggered back, eyes wide, as her wolf surged to the surface, a blaze of dominance no one could mistake. Her voice rang out, sharp and merciless. He is under my protection. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Elders lurched to their feet. The counselor's face twisted in shock and fury. You would defy us, he spat. Seraya stepped down from the dais, each stride heavy with authority, her gaze locked on Lucio. No, she said coldly. I remind you who I am. The guards holding Lucio faltered as her aura crashed over them. She ripped the chains from their hands with a snarl, the silver biting into her palms, burning her flesh, but she did not flinch. Lucio's eyes widened, not in weakness, not in submission, but in something rawer, fiercer. A recognition. The hall erupted in shouts, arguments, chaos. But Seraya did not hear them. She heard only the pounding of her own heart and the answering growl in her veins. She had made her choice. Not throne, not council, him. And though the war had only just begun, in that moment she understood. She would burn the world before she let them take him from her again. Chapter 29. Wolves at War. The hall erupted into chaos. Elders shouted over one another, warriors bristled, and the counselor's staff struck the floor with enough force to echo like thunder. The sound of fury, of outrage, of betrayal. She defies us, one voice cried. She has broken the law, another roared. But Seraya didn't flinch. She stood before them, her palms bleeding from the silver chains she had torn, her body thrumming with dominance. The blood dripped steadily onto the stone floor, each drop a declaration. She had chosen, and there was no turning back. Beside her, Lucio's chest rose and fell in measured breaths, his wolf restless beneath his skin. Though still bound in chains, he radiated strength, silver eyes glowing brighter with every heartbeat. It was as if her defiance had fed him, had given him permission to reclaim what had been stolen. The counselor's voice cut through the uproar like a blade. You would cast aside the will of the council? You would jeopardize the stability of this pack for him? His gnarled hand pointed at Lucio as though he were nothing more than filth on the floor. Soraya's lips curled in a snarl. For him, I would burn your laws to ash. Gasps, outrage, but beneath it all, whispers, low, dangerous, uncertain. For some wolves did not look horrified. Some looked moved, a flicker of doubt in their eyes, a spark of loyalty not to the council, but to her. The counselor saw it too, and fury twisted his features. Then so be it. You have declared war. He lifted his staff, ancient runes glowing red along the shaft. The warriors at his command surged forward, silver blades drawn. And that was when Lucio broke. Not with fear, not with surrender, with power. The chains snapped like paper as his body arched, his wolf exploding from within him. The shift was violent, raw, primal. Fur black as midnight, eyes burning silver white, a beast larger and more terrible than any gathered had seen before. Gasps turned to screams. Warriors faltered mid-charge. The hall shook beneath the force of his growl, a sound that carried centuries of fury, of betrayal, of hunger unleashed. Lucio was no longer the cast-out Omega. He was wrath made flesh. Chapter 30, claimed in fire and blood. The battle ignited in an instant. Council loyalists lunged, silver flashing, while Seraya's wolf erupted from her in tandem with Lucio's. They fought not as alpha and outcast, but as one. Perfectly, terrifyingly in sync. Every strike she made, he followed. Every enemy he threw aside, she finished. Their wolves moved like mirrored shadows, bound by something deeper than instinct, by the bond neither had dared name until now. Blood sprayed across the stone. Screams echoed in the vaulted ceiling. The hall of tradition, of judgment, of order became a hall of carnage. And in the chaos, wolves who had once bowed to the council began to falter. Some lowered their weapons. Others fell to their knees, eyes wide as they realized the truth, that the power before them was not corruption. It was destiny. The counselor raged, his staff blazing with fire, ancient spells spilling from his tongue. He hurled them at Lucio, at Seraya, desperate to end what he could no longer control. But together, they were unstoppable. Lucio's wolf leapt through the fire, tearing the staff from the old man's hands, snapping it in his jaws. Seraya lunged with her fangs, her power blazing brighter than it ever had before. And when she struck not as Alpha obeying law, but as Alpha rewriting it. The counselor fell, and with him, the last thread of the old order snapped. Silence fell in the blood-stained hall. Warriors and elders stared, panting, broken, trembling. Lucio stood at Seraya's side, his massive wolf form towering, silver eyes gleaming like the moon itself. Seraya shifted back, standing tall, her body slick with blood, her eyes hard as steel. She placed a hand on Lucio's fur, steady, claiming him openly before all. "This is my mate," she declared, voice echoing, unyielding. "And together we are your future." No one moved. No one dared. And then, slowly, one by one, wolves lowered their heads. Not in fear. Not in submission to chains and decrees, but in recognition, in allegiance. To her. To them. Lucio shifted back beside her, scars gleaming, chest heaving, silver eyes fixed on her with a heat that promised fire yet to come. For the war had only just begun. But together, bound by blood and bond, they would conquer it all. And nothing, no council, no throne, no law, would ever tear them apart again. We shall draw the curtains here. Don't forget to subscribe, to like, and most importantly leave a comment if you enjoyed this story.